What price do you put on your pet's care? Is there a point where you say, too expensive, the dog has to die?
Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're going to be looking at the worst of British telly.
Are you sweating, Dad?
No, of course not. Has someone turned the heating on?
First up, here's British TV flops that cost millions.
Number 10, Rise and Fall, 2023.
Welcome to Rise and Fall, the game where rulers like me have all the power!
We've all seen how popular The Traitors has been for the BBC recently, and rival network Channel 4 wanted a slice of that pie too. As such, they pumped a heck of a lot of money into their reality game show, Rise and Fall.
Eddie, please make your way to the penthouse.
The whole premise was a massive rip-off of The Traitors to begin with, trading faithfuls and traitors with rulers and grafters. But even with this similarity, viewers did not turn up. The £100,000 cash prize may seem steep already, but apparently the actual production of the show was insanely expensive. This, plus the many mistakes they came across while filming, meant the show was cancelled after just one series.
Let the power struggle begin.
Number 9, Horn and Corden, 2009.
Are you out of shape? Are you the wrong shape?
With the immense popularity of Gavin and Stacey, it seemed that James Corden and Matthew Horn simply couldn't lose. As such, they were given a blank checkbook and creative freedom when their sketch comedy show, Horn and Corden, was greenlit for BBC Three. The first episode even had a decent draw, but there's the problem. When people saw how bad that episode was, they never came back.
I mean, if I told you some of the stuff that he was having to do just to get money, I think you'd be pretty devastated.
Horn and Corden was a massive humbling moment for the pair, as it proved that not everything they touched could turn into gold. Then again, Corden knows a thing or two about losing money. After all, his late night show was bleeding up to $20 million in losses annually before its conclusion.
Horn, solid as a rock. He's waiting. But Corden, it seems to have gone to pieces.
Number 8, Celebrity Wrestling, 2005. Around the mid-2000s, pro wrestling was already feeling the decline since the widely successful Attitude Era in WWE.
I knock her out with my knuckers.
Regardless, ITV thought now was a great time to introduce a new show focusing on celebrities trained by pros competing in wrestling, adjacent competitions.
Fight one! Round one! Sumo slam!
And ITV bet it all on its success, placing it in a prime-time slot and even having an after-show hosted by Holly Willoughby to discuss the latest episode. Well, you may be surprised to hear this, but it wasn't good. Wrestling fans saw it as an insult to the craft, and there was no casual fan base outside of that. It was practically dead on arrival, moved into a quieter slot on a different day, and then it lay down for the cancellation 3 count.
And down she goes!
Number 7, If Katie Hopkins Ruled the World, 2015.
Not everything is about you.
Everything is about
No,
me.
it's
It's
not.
just my world. I rule this
not.
world.
It's quite unlikely that this show itself cost anywhere in the multi-million pounds wheelhouse, but it was a big part of a disastrous push for the British version of TLC's original programming. Katie Hopkins has gained an audience for herself with her controversial opinions, but perhaps they weren't too loyal, as her big television debut pulled a frankly abysmal TV draw of only 69,000 people.
What? So he has to...
While other shows in TLC's original content listings were renewed, this one was emphatically put down after just 7 episodes. TLC would only last a couple more years, and this was clearly the first domino in that collapse.
Do you know what, Katie?
Number 6, Space Cadets, 2005. Ever wonder why we get so much reality TV? Well, a big part of that is because it's so cheap to produce. Space Cadets was not cheap. Reportedly costing £4 to £5 million to produce, Space Cadets saw a group of contestants tricked into thinking they were going to space, when in fact it was all filmed in Suffolk. Despite all the promotion and hype around the television event, it only saw around 2 million people tuning in, a very modest draw for something of this kind. Despite Channel 4 claiming to not being disappointed with the ratings numbers, there is no way they account for the production cost or prizes handed out, hence why they never attempted anything like it again. Number 5, Jericho, 2016.
You're in charge now.
Well, thank you, sir.
The peak of Downton Abbey's popularity was both a blessing and a curse for British television. TV execs across the country were desperate to find similar success, despite period dramas being incredibly expensive to produce. That's when they landed on this idea. Ever wondered what a British Western would look like? Well, wonder no more, because here's Jericho.
You said we could come to you. I'm sorry, Annie.
Set in the 1870s in a fictional town in the Yorkshire Dales, this show focuses on the construction of a viaduct. And yeah, it's as high budget as it sounds. That, however, didn't convert to viewers, as despite having a healthy number, it simply didn't match what was needed to make the show a commercial success. The show was axed before Series 2 could be commissioned, which meant that the expensive set was never used again.
How about a kiss instead, then?
How about I smack you with this suitcase?
Number 4. Beowulf, Return to the Shieldlands, 2016.
That's it. No thanks.
When a show is originally planned to have 5 series and gets cancelled midway through its first one, you know something has gone horribly wrong. Based on the poem of Beowulf, this show tried to breathe new life into the tale and honestly failed. Despite the budget, Beowulf still managed to look egregiously cheap, according to critics. Couple that with a sizable cast with a few notable names, and it was clear that this was losing big money. ITV took the L and dared not speak of it ever again.
There's no time to bury him. Not if we're to make Eric by nightfall.
Number 3. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, 2015.
You've a message to deliver. To him.
This one may surprise you, since it was so well received, but yes, this series revolving around magicians and dark powers actually had a rough time. Following an impressive opening episode viewership of roughly 4.5 million viewers, the second, third, and so on had a massive drop until it was floating around the 1 million mark. That is quite common, usually, but given the insane budget the BBC gave this show, with all its costumes and set pieces, it would have taken some real magic to recoup their losses. Number 2. Camelot, 2011.
So you're the boy. I'm Arthur, who are you?
His name is Merlin and he's not welcome here!
What's a Canadian show doing here, you ask? Well, it's actually made by 2 of Britain's most revered television figures in Chris Chibnall and Michael Hurst. They wanted to capitalise on the success of series like Game of Thrones and Merlin, airing around the same time, adding a sexy filter over an already established tale. But the audience simply wasn't interested. Perhaps they'd seen it all before, or perhaps it didn't scratch the same itch as its grittier counterparts. But either way, with a rumoured episode budget in the multi-millions and viewership only in the 100,000s, it's clear this one was a swing and miss.
Stop worrying about the dead. The living need us more.
Number 1. El Dorado, 1992.
My faith is very important to me.
To many, the title El Dorado is synonymous with the word flop. El Dorado was a hugely ambitious project where the BBC attempted to kickstart a new soap opera in the same vein as EastEnders and Corrie, but set in Spain instead. First, they needed to build an entire town as the set, which set them back roughly £10 million. And that's just scratching the surface when you count other production costs.
What happened? I'll give you 3 guesses.
Despite its primetime slot, the show absolutely failed to draw in viewers, and reviews were also dire. The show was cancelled after its first year, but like most things with the BBC, it's not their money that's funding it, so they just shrugged it off.
You haven't seen me, right?
Next up, we're going to be looking at the top 10 worst TV hosts of all time.
Number 10. Barney Walsh.
Welcome to the toughest game show on earth, and as ever.
When the Gladiators reboot began airing in 2024, there were a lot of comments about Barney Walsh's presenting ability and how he was able to land the job in the first place. Barney is only famous because of his dad, Bradley, whom he co-hosts Gladiators with, leading to nepotism allegations.
And of course, we've got people who are in fantastic shape and spend their whole life in the gym.
Well, I wouldn't say I spend the whole life in the gym, but you know, that's the way it goes.
It would be one thing if he turned out to be immensely gifted at presenting, but that doesn't appear to be the case. You could say that he's still young and has a lot to learn if he wants to make this his career, but equally, you could say that he shouldn't have been given the gig if he wasn't up to snuff, famous dad or not.
Interesting thing is he does ballet as well. Dad, who wants to see him do some ballet?
Number 9. Jimmy Carr. Now, Jimmy Carr is a television staple, and he's one of the best presenters in the business, but not one person wanted to see him front the infamous In-Betweeners reunion in 2019.
Hi, Jimmy. Lovely to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
Now, you played... Wow, you are quite the actor.
Though he's a well-known celebrity fan of the show, he didn't have anything to do with it, and his jokes and laugh rubbed salt in the wound that this wasn't a scripted episode. But if Channel 4 insisted on it being a talk show-style retrospective, the obvious choice to present wasn't Jimmy, but Greg Davies.
You gonna let him get away with that?
That's all right. I'll handle him later, don't worry.
He was there in the audience, but wouldn't it have been great to see Gilbert take charge? The episode was so poorly received that James Buckley publicly apologised, and it's a rare misstep on Carr's CV.
I mean it, Jimmy. I'll destroy him. I mean it.
Like you destroyed his mum at the end of the second film.
Number 8. Philip Schofield.
I have those names there. Those are the names on a piece of paper. You know the names on that piece of paper. Will you be speaking to those people?
His departure from ITV did paint him as a villain, but let's not forget, Schofield made plenty of bad judgment calls over the years as he presented this morning.
Well, these are extremely serious allegations, and that's why the government has moved so quickly to try and get to the bottom of exactly what they are.
He was known to be rude and arrogant to many of his co-stars, notably Fern Britton and Amanda Holden, but he most egregiously got ITV sued for libel. This was when he was wheeled out to interview David Cameron and gave him a list of alleged paedophiles, demanding he investigate.
Because otherwise, a momentary cursory glance at the internet, it took me about 3 minutes last night to continually find a list of the same names.
Some of the names were legible to viewers, and one of the accused successfully sued for defamation. Schofield was seriously reprimanded by the broadcaster for the outrageous stunt. Number 7. Gordon Ramsay. His no-nonsense attitude to bad cooking and terrible business owners are what make him so popular, but it's hard to ignore that Gordon has saved almost none of the restaurants he's ever visited on Kitchen Nightmares.
How can you eat that? If you knew they were off, why didn't you say?
No, I didn't. I didn't know they were off.
He's great on Hell's Kitchen, and of course MasterChef Junior, but many Kitchen Nightmares participants have only had bad things to say about Gordon. In particular, the first episode at Bonaparte's has gone down in history for all the wrong reasons.
Restaurant owner hits back after TV nightmare.
Since then, Bonaparte's restaurant has hit rock bottom.
Sue, the owner, refused to reappear on the revisit and later accused the production of making her look bad on purpose. This prompted Gordon to successfully sue for libel. It was just one failure among many.
So they're not serving any food now?
No, nothing. She said she can't trust chefs and she doesn't know what she's looking for in a chef or all like that, so she's not going to bother at all.
Number 6. Richard Madeley. It's a miracle Madeley still has so many top jobs on the box, as he's now replaced Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain, given his bizarre presenting style.
Now, probably because of all the programming that I've done, particularly with Judy, about anorexia and eating disorders, I'll say this, I probably would have clocked it.
Often described as a real-life Alan Partridge, Madeley seems cursed to produce baffling sound bites and gaffes across his many jobs.
I hate the sight of the burqa when I have seen it. I do see it as a symbol of oppression.
There was the time he said he supported a burqa ban in the UK, the time he called someone a bad father for not noticing their daughter's eating disorder, the time he asked squatters if they stole food from Waitrose, and worst of all, his tone-deaf comments about beloved pets dying, though his Ali G impression was surprisingly good.
What price do you put on your pet's care? Is there a point where you say, too expensive, the dog has to die?
Number 5. Chris Evans. He's had a lot of successful presenting gigs, still popular for his legendary stint on TFI Friday in the 90s.
I'm very happy. I'm in my happy place.
But not everybody is a fan. and he had a truly abysmal run on Top Gear. Following the high-profile departures of Clarkson, Hammond and May, Evans, a lifelong car fan, stepped up to host.
The first series fronted by Chris Evans, and now we learn the only one he'll appear in.
But nearly nobody liked him on the show, including his co-star Matt LeBlanc, who allegedly refused to return for a second series if Evans was still there. Evans left and the lineup kept changing, and the whole show has now been shelved indefinitely by the BBC.
Stepping down from Top Gear. Gave it my best shot, but sometimes that's not enough.
He also presented the rubbish reality show Famous and Fearless, as well as an appalling documentary from 2011 celebrating the life of Jimmy Savile.
I'm a disc jockey. I ride records, I don't ride bikes.
Number 4. Clive Anderson. His 90s talk shows were predicated on him being a rude interviewer, and he did excel in that role. But even he doesn't look back on those years kindly, with numerous incidents where guests were outraged by what he was saying.
But Saturday Night Fever kind of stamped its identity on you and you on it. And he sometimes describes it as a bit of a millstone.
Most notable was the time the Bee Gees walked out, after he repeatedly insulted them, blaming them for the 1970s many fashion faux pas.
I think this decade is the decade that fashion forgot.
Yes.
Because everybody's going back to the 70s and wearing the same clothes again.
Yeah.
You know?
But you probably still had yours, did you? Lying around
my daughter's wearing mine.
He's just one celebrity of many who couldn't make the transition to presenting a talk show, though. Michael McIntyre also had a poorly received talk show, as did TV royalty Davina McCall. Anderson has since said he regrets how he talked to the Bee Gees.
In fact, I might just leave.
Yeah. Oh, I've never had anyone walk out before, but...
well, we are a toss-up, pal.
Number 3. James Corden.
Yeah, but don't keep a distance. Famous people and you guys. Okay.
Luckily, the UK has so far escaped a lot of the Corden television presenting that the US was landed with when he moved to LA to present The Late Late Show. But in 2023, he came back to Blighty, and it's only a matter of time before we start seeing him on our screens again.
I wish I could wear one of those, you know, those biker jackets, the leather biker jackets, they're sort of cropped.
Thus far, he's kept a low profile, but how long until he's summoned to present the BAFTAs or the Brit Awards? His dreadful presenting decisions, like his numerous musical flash mobs, made the rounds in Britain too. Very few people are pleased to have him back on this side of the pond, unless he makes more Gavin and Stacey, of course.
Willard, young man, okay? I can tell you right now, here's the truth of it.
Number 2. Boris Johnson.
You're not aware of anything, Mark.
I think it's a bit early for you to start in on me on this show, Ian.
Politicians do regularly host Have I Got News For You, and some of them do all right. Nick Clegg managed to weather a bevy of criticism about his time in the coalition, after all. But Boris Johnson was never a huge fan of the show during his times as a guest or his turn presenting. Not only has Ian Hislop made no secret of the fact that he despises the man, but Johnson isn't the best at hosting a TV show, especially not one where he has to hold his own against professional comedians and ruthless journalists.
This Boris Johnson was never meant to be let loose on the humankind!
He couldn't keep them in line, mixed up his cue cards, and couldn't think of any jokes of his own.
Everyone who attends gets a potato clock, and by 9 o'clock, they're out of the house and on their way to the awards.
What?
Everybody who attends gets a potato clock.
Gets a potato clock. Gets a potato clock. It's a
joke.
A potato clock.
Number 1. Harold Wilson.
Let me introduce the lady described by Jim Callaghan as the sexiest thing on television.
While it's normal enough for politicians to show up on the BBC's flagship political panel show, it's a bit less normal for a former Prime Minister to front a talk show. Maybe if they were the most charismatic and popular leader we'd ever had, it would make a bit of sense. But that description certainly doesn't fit Harold Wilson.
Who is the sexiest man on TV?
Oh, you mean next to you?
Well, I wasn't...
Oh, Terry Wogan, Barry Manilow, and you again.
He was terrible as a TV host when he appeared on Friday night, Saturday morning for 2 of its early episodes, unable to ask his guests interesting questions or respond to them in an entertaining way.
No, I think in my youth I did play Shakespeare, Desdemona and things like that, but I'm a bit past it now, I think.
Now, tell me...
Say no.
It's true that he may have already been suffering from dementia at this point, but we don't think even a young Wilson would have been a good interviewer.
Ever feel like you're a failure? Well, it can't be as bad as these, the top 10 British reality TV shows that failed.
Number 10. Golden Balls.
Your total cash is now 3,860. Your highest possible win is 5,660.
This was a show about mind games and manipulation, as contestants hoped they struck gold, literally, and got a high-value ball, while also strategically voting out their competitors.
It's 1,800.
Has to be binned, Mark, sorry.
Oh well.
At the end, they were given the choice to split or steal the prize. If they both stole, they went home with nothing. If they both split, they'd each get an equal share. But if one stole and one split, the stealer would walk away with the cash. Despite this gripping finale, people got sick of its complicated rules and the fact that the victors were often the most ruthless and uncooperative players. No wonder it only lasted for a few years.
These are things that you have to remember when you go into the second round.
Number 9. Changing rooms.
It was to house a very beautiful collection of antique teapots.
Of course, changing rooms has always been hugely popular, but it's not popular because anybody actually wants interior design tips from it. No, it's popular because we're all waiting for the moment when everything goes wrong. Despite the participants being paired up with legendary designers, including Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen, they themselves have no experience and do whatever they like.
Only seconds after finishing in Linda's room, disaster struck. The added weight of all those books proved too much for the freestanding shelves.
Many a home has been ruined after it appeared on Changing Rooms, with preposterous paints and woeful wallpapers in abundance.
That is all our teapots. Oh no. That is all our teapots. Oh no.
And who can forget the biggest failure of all, when one woman's priceless teapot collection was destroyed by Linda Barker and a rogue shelving unit. Number 8. Murder Island.
Grandfather was a detective, my dad was a detective, so genetics would suggest that it was in my blood.
This bizarre experimental show appeared on Channel 4 in 2021. A group of armchair detectives were enlisted to travel to a remote island to solve a dastardly murder devised by Ian Rankin. They had top coppers to help them out and a huge cast of paid actors to interview.
Oh, she's got a whole load of pamphlets.
Yeah.
But it turns out that arguing with people about true crime on Facebook is no replacement for actual investigative training. They were all atrocious at it. They were rude to the witnesses, asked all the wrong questions, contaminated crime scenes, and couldn't find key pieces of evidence.
You were taking photographs while standing in the blood at the entrance to the bedroom. You then introduce footprints onto the rug in the bedroom.
With 50 grand at stake, you'd think they'd have performed a bit better. But alas, these sleuths couldn't investigate their way out of a paper bag.
Had you all done your jobs properly at the crime scene, you would have discovered this diary.
Number 7. The Jump.
The actress against the gymnast. And here's Louisa Lytton, formerly of EastEnders and The Bill.
Making I'm a Celebrity look like a cakewalk, The Jump has been branded one of the most dangerous TV shows ever made. It very nearly failed before it got off the ground, after being outright rejected by ITV, but eventually Channel 4 made the grave error of picking it up.
Oh, this is a terrible start! Unbelievably slow! Ridiculous!
Throughout its 4 series, the celeb participants suffered a raft of horrendous injuries. In the first series alone, there were injured shoulders and hands and a concussion, with injuries getting increasingly serious.
I suppose she's terrified, but she really does have to look up.
A dislocated elbow, broken ankle, and Olympian Beth Tweddle broke her back and sued the production company.
Beth Tweddle, the most successful British gymnast of all time.
Number 6. Splash.
I think I've been more bruised, more achy and more sore than I imagined. Over Christmas I couldn't actually move my neck, I was like that.
In a similar vein to The Jump was Splash, the Tom Daly-fronted diving show that at least some people must have watched, surely. Clearly somebody thought that Daly had enough star power to carry this show, and he does remain one of the UK's most well-known and popular athletes. But even he couldn't save the celebrity diving competition.
Joe Brand, great as always to see you. What is it going to take to impress you this year?
Courage, confidence, chutzpah.
From its bizarre choices in judges, we love Jo Brand, but surely she wasn't their first pick to judge diving. To the relatively boring loop of watching people badly jump off a diving board over and over, Splash was doomed from the beginning. Plus, they filmed it in Luton. Number 5. Hole in the Wall.
Bring on the wall!
Who doesn't want to see their favourite celebrities try to jump through a wall? Well, everybody apparently, because there were only 21 episodes ever made. Yes, more celebs falling into water, Hole in the Wall was at least a bit more exciting than Splash, though that isn't saying much.
Stay in the middle! Stay in the middle, you've got it! You've got it!
The celebrity teams, led primarily by Joe Swash and Austin Healey, all had to jump through a strangely shaped hole in a foam wall, or else the wall would drag them into the pool behind. But once you've seen a celebrity jump through one hole, you may as well have seen them all, and the exciting bits were always over too quickly to even start enjoying them. Number 4. 5 guys a week.
Certain person I can go and sort of just chill out with. You saw what the dog. There's only so much the dog wants to be walked.
Was this a TV show about only eating at overpriced burger chain Five Guys for an entire week? No. It instead followed a woman who invited 5 single men to come and live with her for 7 days, to see which one she clicked with the most.
You just said that 5 seconds ago.
I've kind of arrived at a point that I feel like they're treating me again.
Yeah, oh, tell me more. Can I hear it one more time, please?
It was one of those reality shows that touted itself as a social experiment to trick viewers into thinking it had some merit. And no, it wasn't 5 separate weeks, it was 1 week where all 6 of them were living together, all trying to seduce the same woman.
So good looking that I just stopped listening and I was like, just staring.
Imagine going on a date with 5 blokes at once and living together. The mind boggles. Number 3. I Wanna Marry Harry.
Sir is going to arrive by helicopter, and the ladies are going to be gently having afternoon tea on the lawn, and then they're going to see someone who looks very well known step out.
Of course, this show wasn't British, because you'd have a much harder time fooling the average Brit into thinking this ordinary bloke is Prince Harry than an American.
Oh my God. Is that who I think it is? We were definitely thinking, like, who is this guy?
It also failed more spectacularly than most because it was so bad it was cancelled only halfway through its first and only series. It did eventually air completely in the UK thanks to ITV, so we could all bask in how shocking it was that any of them believed this lie too.
This was the first moment in which I got to meet the 12 lovely ladies. I was very nervous, actually.
He didn't even look that much like Prince Harry, and in real life is a natural blonde. Number 2. Rise and Fall.
You will stay and help decide who wins the prize fund.
Channel 4's answer to The Traitors, Rise and Fall, presented by Greg James, just didn't have the same mystique as Claudia Winkleman and her remote Scottish castle. The contestants were split into 2 castes, one rich and one poor, with the poor group having to compete for prize money.
When I walked into that mixer, I thought there's not a hope in hell that I'm going to be able to survive here.
But there was a twist. Depending on how it was played, they could move between the different groups to be in with a chance of winning 100 grand.
He gave so much back to the basement and worked his arse off, and he really, should have been in the penthouse for much longer than he was.
In this way, it was actually less interesting than The Traitors premise, and Channel 4 announced it was going to be axed after 1 series. Number 1. Freeze the Fear with Wim Hof. While both Holly Willoughby and Lee Mack are a safe pair of hands, with Willoughby presenting This Morning for years and Mack hosting the 1% Club, together they were an odd duo.
You'll be attached to a safety line and there are some specially trained divers under the ice, so if you get trapped, they can drag you to the surface.
But even Lee Mack's sharp wit couldn't save Freeze the Fear and its bizarre concept, as it forced us to watch celebrities be very cold.
He took him out.
You wouldn't believe how cold some of these celebs got, with the likes of Diane Buswell and Gabby Logan sent to the Alps for the duration. But it turns out that watching a handful of people with chattering teeth doesn't actually make for good television, and it was cancelled after one series.
I don't want to do it.
Don't do it. Very good. I love it.
You're learning. Yes.
Here's a good one.
Let us know in the comments if you think any of these shows should be brought back from the dead.
I think you better go sit down and we better tidy this up.
Lastly, it's the big one. Here's the top 20 worst British comedies.
Number 20, The Melting Pot.
It seemed that when you were showing the tongues and the lorry stopped, that is the one he has arranged for.
Spike Milligan is considered a comic legend in the UK, but The Melting Pot, which he created, wrote and starred in, is something we all wish didn't exist and could be erased from our memories. Broadcast in 1976, the first episode was on BBC. Then, none of the others were released, and it could have something to do with the fact that the two white leads, Milligan and John Bird, donned blackface to look like they're from Pakistan.
Dick sent us. You will say that. You will say Dick sent us. Yes, I will say Dick sent us. Good.
Even another white actor, Harry Fowler, played someone with Chinese heritage and is seen wearing a jumper with a very outdated character on it.
Ah, but not recently, son. These features will change like my dialect.
Honestly, this show is dire and should never see the light of day again. Number 19, Citizen Khan. There are some mysteries out there that we'll never really know the answers to. What happened to Lord Lucan? Who was Jack the Ripper? And how did Citizen Khan get 5 series?
Are you sweating, Dad?
No, of course not. Has someone done the heating on?
At least the latter is asked by many in the audience. The show follows Mr. Khan, a self-described leader of the community, and his family in Birmingham. Even after the first episode aired, the BBC quickly received 185 complaints. Viewers weren't keen on the stereotyping of British Pakistanis and the mocking of the Muslim faith. The show was also slated by critics who held nothing back.
You're a very nice man, but I play with a straight bat, you know what I mean?
Arifa Akbar described it as like sitcoms from the 1970s, while the Herald called Citizen Khan the worst comedy. Number 18, Honey for Tea.
You see, I am your mother.
Since 1964, we Brits have felt smug about America's Dick Van Dyke's grim attempt at doing a Cockney accent in Mary Poppins. We've mocked it for years, rubbing it in the faces of our cousins across the pond. Well, our collective smile evaporated quickly after Honey for Tea did the reverse, as England's Felicity Kendall attempted a US accent.
You did what with Lucy?
Excuse me?
Hang on. Simon, I'm on the phone.
It's incredibly distracting, and the region that her accent is based on changes from sentence to sentence. Kendall plays a broke British-born American who returns to Blighty after her husband's passing since he invested lots of cash in St Maud's College in Cambridge. She uses this to become an assistant bursar. After 7 episodes, the show was canned with little fanfare.
You're a weasel, Basil. You exploit people, and you're not very good at your job.
Number 17, Horrible.
Oh, Christ. Shorty boy! All right, mate. All right, pup.
When the star of a sitcom blasts the show's quality a couple of years later, you know it probably wasn't that good. And that's true with Horrible. Starring Johnny Vaughan as a wannabe criminal and taxi driver, the BBC really wanted this to be successful. Even in their own review, they talked about its potential a lot, while slipping in some criticisms.
Oh, come on.
One of the bad takeaways was Vaughan's acting, which is probably why he's better known as a radio presenter today. Also criticised was the awkward dialogue and the lack of chemistry between the characters.
Where's the Don? He never left the room. See you. I love you sometimes.
Number 16, Life of Riley. Having starred in the beloved Men Behaving Badly and fresh off her success in Life Begins, Caroline Quentin gave Life of Riley a go in 2009, and it didn't go too well.
Don't
Involving newlyweds and the hijinks of their blended family, the show was slated after its first episode aired. Critics felt that it was an unfunny throwback to 1970s sitcoms that are only looked back at positively thanks to nostalgia. The funny moments often came across as forced and put the characters in unbelievable situations as a result. After 3 series, the show was cancelled.
Oh, stupid, wrong, but no admit.
Well, it's been nice chatting to you.
On the plus side, it freed up Neil Dudgeon to move to the most dangerous village in the world for Midsummer Murders. Number 15. Married for Life.
I hate that new security light.
The US has had success with remaking British shows like The Office or American Idol, but when it's happened the other way round, there aren't that many that have done well. And 1996's Married for Life, a remake of Married with Children, is definitely on the bad pile. Starring comedian and musician Russ Abbott, the show came across as an American sitcom, except with British accents, and not quite as fun.
From now on, Ted Butler is going to live with a bit of dignity.
Even some of the comedic situations became unrealistic and required too much suspension of disbelief for many. Still, we witnessed young Hugh Bonneville and Rob Brydon making their mark on the small screen, so that's something. After 7 episodes, ITV divorced Married for Life.
My angel.
Number 14. Mad About Alice.
Oh, that's nice. I used to have a hamster when I was little, called Buttons. What's he called? Specimen 22.
Amanda Holden seems to be kryptonite to sitcoms. Several shows she's been on have tanked really badly. It's weird. Featuring her future radio co-host Jamie Theakston, you know you're in for a bad time as the duo sings the opening theme song for Mad About Alice.
Well, what would you know? Oh, just look around you. It's Mad About Alice. Please don't remind me. Mad About Alice. All right, don't go on about it.
The show is about an ex-couple who share parenting duties for their son while balancing their professional and personal lives. While the debut episode had strong viewing figures, the criticism was heavy. The Sunday People slated Theakston's acting and the show's smugness with its ever-decreasing levels of comedy. Yikes. After 6 episodes, Mad About Alice was thrown out by the BBC.
Hey, Scott. Are you ready for me?
Are you sure you're going to be warm enough in that?
Number 13. Land of Hope and Gloria. After years of performing with the R&B group The 3 Degrees, Sheila Ferguson landed one of her first acting gigs with a starring role as Gloria Hepburn in Land of Hope and Gloria.
You're going to have to try harder than that, Carrie. Remember, this guy's English. You got to be more direct.
Playing an American that moves to the UK to become the business manager at a traditional stately home, the show heavily leans on culture clash comedy. And it grew tiresome quickly. It also tried to make a British estate being run by a black American woman a strong source of content, but that quickly fell flat. After just 6 episodes being released by ITV, the sitcom was discarded.
One could understand being homesick if one were English, but isn't it incredible to think of anyone being homesick for the United States of America?
While Ferguson carved out a great career in the theatre. Number 12. Babes in the Wood.
Where am I and what the hell am I doing here?
It's me, Ches. Charlie!
With a name based on a pun about women living in St John's Wood in London, Babes in the Wood was already off to a rough start when it arrived in 1998. Taking all the bad bits of Friends, the sitcom originally starred Denise Van Outen, Natalie Walter and Samantha Womack sharing a flat together. A lot of the criticism was how empty the content was.
Well, there's no rule against being happy, is there?
I'll have to check.
Instead, it was dialogue heavy, with juvenile curse words throughout. But to make it worse, the jokes were also very predictable, which takes a lot of the fun out of watching a comedy, as the surprise makes it infinitely better. After 2 series and a Christmas special, ITV felt that was enough torment.
That's your Christmas tree?
Yep.
Flipping heck, Chaz, I've seen moles with a healthier growth.
That is perfect for the single man.
Number 11. Mrs. Brown's Boys.
See me on my first. I went to the doctor for my first visit.
He told me to bring a sample with me. I brought a freaking milk bottle full.
No one in the UK knows how this show has survived for over 10 years. Every Christmas it plagues our screens, taunting us with its inexplicable longevity. We can only imagine creator Brendan O'Carroll has something on the BBC. Once the Irish UK produced Mrs. Brown's Boys aired, it seemed like it would soon be axed.
And if you get the wrong answers, he'll shoot me. With a big gun.
After all, the comedy in situations could easily fit into sitcoms from 50 years ago. It focuses heavily on gross humour and innuendos, which date it drastically. The show is even heavy in nepotism, since many in the cast are related to O'Carroll. But with 4 series, many specials, spin-offs, a film and stage shows, the show refuses to leave and has a bizarre, loyal following.
It's the gonorrhea that rolls.
Number 10. Hard Sell. Catherine Tate has had a busy 2022. Firstly, she wrote and starred in the Nan movie. Then, she had her TV show Hard Sell debut on Netflix.
Was this the Tier 1 dream? No. Was it the Tier 2 dream? Barely.
It's one of Tate's first goes at a sitcom, as her bread and butter has been in sketch shows. This mockumentary series showcases life inside a prison, with Tate playing a range of characters. However, it didn't exactly go well with the audience or critics, with some taking shots at the constant use of repetition and double entendre toilet jokes.
Because I didn't do it.
We all didn't do it, love.
No, but I really didn't do it.
Well, if your trial turns into a sentence, you know where to find me.
Hard Sell is heavily stylised after The Office, which at times makes the show feel like it came out in the early 2000s. But it does get slightly better as the series goes on. Number 9. Coming of Age. Before The Inbetweeners came along and took the title for top teenage school comedy, there was Coming of Age on the BBC.
Drama.
While The Inbetweeners was hugely popular and released multiple films, the same couldn't be said for Coming of Age. It could be due to the fact many of the jokes didn't exactly land well and tended to play poorly on gender stereotypes. On top of this, many of the complaints point to the annoying and very immature characters.
All right, Pete. What? Yeah, all right. Yeah, it's not too bad. Just figuring out a way to get Jazz to kiss me.
But the biggest issue was its vulgarity and awkwardness. It also focused on obvious innuendos that have all the subtlety of a caffeinated bull on rollerblades in a fragile china shop during an earthquake.
Look, why don't you just shut up and get out?
Okay.
Don't leave me, I'm sad.
Number 8. Brighton Bells. The US and the UK love to make their own versions of each other's TV shows. The Office and Law and Order are just a couple of examples. Well, in 1993, The Golden Girls was remade in the UK with Brighton Bells. But since it's in the video, it wasn't a success. Only 6 episodes into its run, the show was cancelled due to poor ratings. The remaining 5 episodes were squeezed in randomly to fill time in the schedule. Most of the issues stem from repeating the Golden Girls jokes and stories just with British accents, which made Brighton Bells pointless. This is a shame, since the cast featured the great Sheila Hancock and Wendy Craig. Number 7. Hardwick House.
Don't touch him either! Especially as you're still not a proper teacher. My room, string vest.
It's not every day that a show is cancelled after only 2 episodes from a double bill premiere, but that was the fate of Hardwick House in 1987. The viewers were so outraged that the other 5 episodes weren't aired, and for good reason. The show was set at a school, with the teachers taking centre stage, and some of those teachers were a bit much.
By now you will all be getting urges. Urges which you cannot always. History, maths, English, French and geography.
Especially as one was hinted to have slain multiple people, and another took a very unhealthy interest in the kids. One episode even featured a schoolgirl being graphically electrocuted, and had a copper with a schoolboy on a lead. The unaired episodes did end up on the internet, but be prepared for shocking, uncomfortable humour.
You dozy pillock. Come on, boy.
Number 6. Bottle Boys. The starring role of Dave Deacon in Bottle Boys was originally written for Jim Davison, so that should give you a good idea of its quality.
Oh, you lucky beggar.
You cheer up? I would have done, except for one thing.
Ah, she was married, eh?
She was a fella.
Instead, the role was given to Robin Asquith, who was known for doing the Confession series of films in the 1970s. Beyond a theme tune that will worm its way into your brain and have you chanting it at inappropriate moments, the show had little going for it. The story involved a football-loving deacon who worked as a milkman. He often tried to sleep with as many women as possible on his rounds. Yep, even in 1984 it felt horribly outdated. Critics slated the show. Some called this sitcom the worst ever.
I mean, there's a hall full of people out there, to say nothing of Councillor Lynch. What am I going to tell them? I shall go outside there. I shall go outside there, stand there. I shall make an announcement. I shall tell them that Bernie Winters is indisposed. No?
Number 5. The Holden Girls, Mandy and Myrtle.
I love Johnny, but all he ever wants to do is gossip about people in the industry. I cannot stand that, so I just don't get involved.
Some people might have been intrigued by a comedy featuring Amanda Holden and Lee, Keith Lemon Francis, but their interest would have fallen off a cliff after seeing this show. The Holden Girls, Mandy and Myrtle is a mockumentary about Holden attempting to persuade her nan to live with her.
He does brilliant impression of Bruce Forsyth, actually. He does a really good impression of Bruce Forsyth.
Anyone can do Bruce Forsyth.
The show relied heavily on celebrities dropping in and lending their star power, but that didn't win over viewers. If anything, it annoyed them more, as the show had little depth. Francis as Myrtle was weird for the prosthetic makeup alone. Holden has a history of being in despised comedies. Back in 2009, she was in the short-lived circus sitcom Big Top. It regularly pops up on worst show lists.
Hopefully it'll work.
I'm from Doncaster. Things I've done for you. Stick your programme up your ass.
Number 4. The Right Way. Ben Elton is a successful novelist, playwright, comedian, and screenwriter with shows like Blackadder and The Young Ones. So creating The Right Way is a massive blip in his career. As the Daily Mirror put it, the stickman being electrocuted in the opening titles is the lucky one. A sitcom all about Council Officer Gerald Wright, the show lacked any originality. Instead, preferring to reuse old jokes, telegraph humour, and constantly have the young character go on about recording things for YouTube.
This is so a YouTube moment.
Weirdly, this isn't the only time Elton has delivered a massive TV dud. In 2005, he created Blessed, which featured a great cast. However, it still got panned almost as much as The Right Way would years later.
Bill and Mary. That's right, Bill and Mary. Bill and Mary. Bill and Mary. Bill and Mary.
Number 3. Sam's Game. When you think of Davina McCall, you remember she's a great presenter. Unfortunately, the role of actor doesn't really spring to mind.
No, I'm Sam, you're Tom.
Oh, yeah.
No! Sit down!
And a big part of that reason is due to Sam's Game. When it came out, it was talked about as though it would make McCall's career in the acting world. Instead, it made sure she would forever remain a wonderful presenter. Even with a cast featuring Tristan Gemmell, Tamika Empson, and Ed Byrne, the sitcom quickly wore out its welcome. All about a group of flatmates, Sam's Game relied on the goodwill of UK Friends fans, just minus the relatability, fun, or comedy.
Move, all of you! Go! Friendly?
After only one series of being placed in the primetime slot, Sam's Game was unplugged. Number 2. The Royal Bodyguard.
I believe you're expecting me. Guy Hubble. Royal Bodyguard.
David Jason is a comedy legend thanks to his work on Only Fools and Horses as Derek, Del Boy Trotter. So when it was announced he would star in the sitcom The Royal Bodyguard as the Queen's top protector, everyone was excited to see it. Then, once they did, the audience horribly regretted getting swept away with nostalgia.
Sorry, I've forgotten. Am I good cop or bad cop? Bad cop. Bad cop. Thank you very much, okay.
Around 8 million people tuned in to watch the debut episode on Boxing Day. By the end of the episode, 1.5 million people had changed the channel. Yikes. People slated the script and the lack of clever or original jokes as the main problem.
You have an IQ somewhere between that of a goldfish and a fruit bat.
Well, to be fair, sir, I did have a bit of a cold that day.
As a result of the backlash, the series wasn't renewed and instead perished after only 6 episodes. Number 1. Heil, honey, I'm home. Oh boy.
Don't touch me. You've been late for your dinner every night this week.
Ava, babe, please. I'm the Fuhrer.
Imagine the worst premise for a sitcom. Then times it by 100 and you'll get Heil, honey, I'm home. The story is about Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun living together in a flat. Their neighbours are a Jewish couple, Arnie and Rosa Guildenstein. Hitler regularly makes his hatred of them known. Not surprisingly, it was cancelled after only 1 episode.
I'll show him around the town, we'll have a few beers. He'll forget about Czechoslovakia. He'll think, hey, this Adolf Hitler is a regular guy.
On top of trying to make Hitler funny, the show also tried to parody American sitcoms from the 50s. They were aiming for satire, apparently, but ended up instead just offending everyone. Other historical figures that were set to be parodied include Neville Chamberlain, Joseph Stalin, and Hermann Goering. Yeah, it's not shocking it didn't work out.
Okay, that's good.
What's the worst British TV show you've ever watched? Let us know in those comments below. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.